Hey everyone, Wags here from Eagle Dynamics, and yesterday we released the 64. We all very much hope you're enjoying the product, and like any new, brand new early access, of course, there's going to be a few bugs, but also I've noticed several misunderstandings of how systems work, whether it was looking at our official Discord, YouTube, Facebook, and different streams out there. So I thought I'd make a quick little video to try to explain some of these a little bit better. And most of these actually do have in earlier videos we put together, but sometimes it needs hearing it a couple times to get it fully understood. So first, let's talk about George. I think there's a little confusion on the command system. So I'm actually going to go to our controls. So first, there's actually three different places we're going to adjust George. First, go to AH-64D. George is AI helper. And the only ones we really need to worry about here are their interface of up, down, left, and right. And generally, most people will map this to a four-way switch. So, like in the earlier video, when I talked about George, you'll hear me talk about up short, right long, left long, and so on. So that's referring to these presses here. So down, left, right, and up. And as you can see, I have these assigned to a four-way hat switch. So that's all you really need to assign in this category. Then if we go to our pilot, we go to George for him or her, George AI helper. And here, there's two you want to bind. First, we have consent to fire. And that simply means, as you may recall from, say, the Hellfire video, when George has located a target as a CPG and is ready to fire, you can either be in manual consent to essentially give him a verbal order to fire. It's not like a trigger pull. And you can assign that to the stick, which I do here. The other one is displaying the interface. So as you may recall, in the pilot seat, you'll have the four boxes at the top for your speed, heading, and altitude. You have a compass for those. If you press this button, you can go ahead and hide that or show it. And it's something you'll want to assign to one of your hats. So what I do is, again, for the four-way hat switch that I've assigned to up, down, left, and right, it also has a Z-axis. So that's what I've assigned this to. Then if we go to CPG, and we go to George for him, AI helper. The only one I have here, again, is the show hide, which again I've also mapped as the Z press for that four-way hat switch where I control George. So, just in summary, it's a four-way hat switch that you'll press up, down, left, and right, and depending on the command, it'll either be a short press, like less than 0.5 seconds, or a long press where you keep it held down greater than 0.5 seconds. And then again, based on how you map it, you'll have a button or a switch for either pilot or CPG to show or hide the interface. So I hope that makes that a little clearer. Next, let's go ahead and set up our systems for a Hellfire attack. That seems to be causing a little bit of confusion. So actually, first I'm going to bring up George. So I'm going to press my hide show button that I've assigned on the CPG interface. So now we see the interface, and I'm going to go short up, say 3 times. 1, 2, 3, to bring my altitude up to 30 feet. Now, to use the Hellfires, first I'm going to go master arm to arm. I'm going to go to my utility page here on the weapons page. And if you look down here at L6, we have an option for laser. And there's some conditions when you start a mission, this will be off. So you want to check this and manually make sure the laser is operating. 99% of the time where I've seen people have an issue of the laser not working for them, it's because this looks like that. You want to make sure it looks like that instead. Coming back out, let's go to the missile format, and we'll WASP the Hellfire. Okay, now I'm going to go to flight mode in George by going to short left on the controller. Now, to go forward airspeed, I'm going to go up short on the George controller. So 40 knots forward.
Speeding up.
You can also see I have my laser rangefinder designator set to alpha. In my channel for my Hellfires is also on alpha. So I want to make sure Pry and your laser rangefinder are all both set to the same channel. You can also see that my sight is currently the HMD. To designate with Hellfires and use the laser, we need to set that to the TADS. So to do that, I'm going to go to my sensor select switch and go to the right. Actually, let's take a look at that for a second. So we go to Adjust Controls, go to CPG. And honestly, I can't remember if it's the left grip or the right grip. Let's take a look. So left-hand grip. Here are fields of view, or store. We can talk about it here in a second. Camera, WAS switch. That must be the right one. Right. So here is where we select our sight. So HMD, I'm going to go up on my controller. And TADS, I'm going to go to the right on that controller. So you can see here I have my TADS up as my sight now. But let's say I just want to use the TDU behind it. I'm just going to hit I to turn it off. I enjoy doing this better. So now I can also slew my FLIR around. Let's bring our altitude up.
Copy. Increasing altitude.
And the level's a little high. Let's bring that down. So in this case, sometimes, particularly a hot target on a hot environment, it can get a little grayed out, hard to see. So in that case, don't be afraid to go to your optical camera. Okay, now we're going to hit the laser designation key, LFRD second detent. And we can see the cross on the corners indicating that is firing. We can also see we have alpha T for tracking, so the laser is definitely working. Okay, let's slow down here to hover. So I'm going to go down short.
Copy, slowing down.
Also, I'm going to go to my show page. Go to TAC. And I'm going to place a point on him. So I'm going to hold down the laser designation button, hit the store button, and now I've placed a T01 at that location. And just to confirm, I'm going to go back and show you the laser designation key in case you forgot. So adjust controls, CPG. That is on the right hand grip. Right hand grip. And here we have right hand grip, LRFD trigger, second detent. So that's the one I'm going to be using. Now sometimes when you're moving around, it's kind of hard to keep that TADS where you want it. So it's easier just to place it where you want it and then hit the LMC or the linear motion compensator. Like that. You'll see these 2 brackets or 4 brackets on the end indicating that you're in LMC mode. So at this point, we can see that we're in direct mode. Let's designate with laser as we talked about. We have a large solid box indicating that we are in constraints and that the missile seeker sees the laser code that it wants. So now we're just going to press the trigger button to second detent. rifle. Seconds. And shack. Now it's also important to remember, if you're going after like a modern day main battle tank, sometimes it may take more than one hit to destroy the tank outright. In fact, if it's facing right at you and you're going against the frontal armor, it's going to be more difficult penetration. And sometimes, in fact, it may actually impact on the barrel of the gun, preventing essentially a full-on kill. Now, we've also seen some issues of people unable to use the Hellfire in either high or low trajectory. So let's take a look at that next. I'm going to turn off my LMC. Find another target out here. There's one out there. Oh, a little hard to hit that one. Let's try him nonetheless. Probably pretty far. How far is he out? 7 should be fine. Let's zoom in. Hope we can hit just on the top there. So if we're going to go to low or high, we'll go to trajectory. Let's go high. And the key here now is that we need to set a point that the missile is going to fly to, not fly to the point that we're designating with the TADs. So it's very different than direct. So in this case, I'm going to drop another point exactly at that location. So laser designating, store button, and I set that as T02. So I want to go to my coordinate page, coords, T02, and that's my acquisition source, is T02. And that's where the Hellfire is going to fly out to. What'll happen is we'll fire that Hellfire in about 15 to 20 seconds before time of flight impact. I'll go ahead and designate then. So as that missile is tipping over and heading down the target, it'll see that laser designation and home in on it. And 79, so it's a long shot, but I think it'll work. Okay, so 2-stage trigger, missile out. 30 seconds, it's a long shot. Okay, 20 seconds. Okay, designating. Close, but you get the idea. So that's how you use low and high. Again, it's very different from direct, that with low and high, it's a lock-on after launch or a LOAL, and it's simply flying to the point you designate, and then you're blazing near the end of the flight, whereas with direct, you're designating the whole time based on where your TADS is focused on. Okay, let's take a look at trim. So probably the biggest thing I'm seeing people struggle with is how to trim the aircraft. So let's take a look at the controls first. Controls. We're in pilot. Let's go to the cyclic, basically his control stick. And here we have the force trim controls. So we have up, down, left, and right. So when we go up, that's going to be the force trim release. We'll talk about that here in a second. I'm not going to worry about down. Then we have left. That's going to be the attitude hold, which I talked about in an earlier video. Then right goes to altitude hold, which will come later in early access. The important one I want to talk about today is up for the force trim release. So let's come back out. So with force trim, think of it this way. If I've moved my stick, it's based on the current center position, which you can see here in the center. But let's say I move my stick off here to the left, I press and release the force trim button, my hand is actually off the stick now, and this is the new center position for the stick. So now if I put my hands back on, I go up, down, left, and right, it's based on that new trimmed center position. I want to re-trim back to the center, press the force trim switch, move it back in the center, and release. And now this is back to my other position. Same thing, let's say I want to trim aft. I'll press and hold, move the stick to a different position, release the force trim button, and now that's my new center position. Let's go back to the center. Force trim, hold and release, release, and now that's in the center. And the exact same thing with the rudder pedals. So if I push them over here to the left, force trim and release, this is my new center position. And it's really easy sometimes to lose track of where that force trim center position is. And many times what will happen is you'll lose track of where that was. And next thing you know, you find yourself spinning out of control. So particularly when you're first learning to fly, I recommend having this up so you can keep an eye on where those controls actually are. And to bring the controls indicator, simply press right control and enter at the same time, and you can bring it up. So let me put it back in the middle. So force trim switch up and hold, move it back in the center, and release. So now all my controls are centered up. Also, let's go back to, actually, you can't see it from here, but as you may recall from an earlier video, if you go to your options and then go to the special tab, and then you go to AH-64D, you also have different options for the type of trim system. So some are force feedback friendly, one is more attuned for springs, and one is for no springs. So you may want to try those as well and see what works best for you. So going back to we talked about it in the earlier getting airborne video, when you first take off, you start bringing back the collective, and you'll notice that the whirl starts to tip a little bit. So we're going to counteract that with a little bit of left foot. Keep bringing it back. I'm going to actually push the cyclic a little bit to the left, and keeping an eye on my acceleration cue in the outside world. And as long as you have good, smooth controls, you can see she's really teddy bear, to be in a hover. The key is not to over control and hand fist it. So right now I haven't set my trim. I want to go ahead and get some forward airspeed. So I get to 6 knots. I want to go to transition. You can see my flight path vector up there. I'm going to center it on the horizon. And once it's about where I want here, I'm going to press and release the force trim button. And now it's my new trim center position. And you can see, so right now my hands are off the rudder entirely, but you can see on the controller that my rudders are showing a little bit off to the left because that's trim position. So you can see right now too, I'm essentially not in nose to tail trim. Let's say I wanted to do that. So to do that, I would push in a little bit of right pedal to bring the flight path vector into the middle. Get right there. I'm going to press and release trim button for the force trim release. And now you can see all my controls are all centered up there. But again, let's say I wanted to do aerodynamic trim and have a centered ball. We can see that the ball is off to the left, so I'm going to go left pedal. Get the ball centered right about there. Trim, force release, and now we're in aerodynamic trim. So again, I know it's one of those things that initially it seems a little odd, but part of the problem is just the controllers. With the real 64 stick, it's much more akin to say a force feedback stick, whereas most you're going to be dealing with sticks that have center springs to center everything. So this is, the best, way we can emulate that. But there is a bit of a learning curve to get the feel for. But I can assure you that once you get used to it, it becomes second nature. The last thing I'll note is a couple known issues. The first is there's a bit of a desync between pilot and CPG in network play, and this seems to be causing some Hellfire accuracy issues, and that will be fixed in the first hotfix, which probably should be next week. And the other is wind. We're not 100% sure, but we think that if there's wind in a mission, it may, on some servers, it may be affecting the accuracy of the Hellfire, but it's something that we're still looking into. We're not 100% sure what's going on there. But again, hopefully we'll have a fix for that in the first hotfix next week as well. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed this little video. I know it's a little informal, a little bit thrown together, but I wanted to get something out to you quick for those of you that are running into some of the issues I have addressed in this video. So, have fun, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.